Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never imagined something as simple as a name could split a marriage in half. But standing in that hospital room, watching my wife hold our newborn son, I felt something shift that I still struggle to explain. I'm James, 36, married to Elizabeth for 8 years. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. Or at least, I thought we were. Elizabeth and I talked about everything before the baby arrived. Nursery colors, school districts, even college funds. We argued, sure, but we always came back to the table. The one thing we promised each other we'd decide together was our son's name. It mattered to me. My dad passed away when I was young, and carrying a name forward felt like a quiet way of honoring family. Elizabeth knew that. She said she understood. The labor was long, 18 hours. I stayed beside her the entire time, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, feeling useless but present. When our son finally arrived, crying and red and perfect, I felt that overwhelming rush people talk about. Relief, pride, love so intense it almost hurt. Elizabeth looked exhausted but peaceful, her eyes soft as she stared at him. The nurse asked gently, "Have you chosen a name?" Elizabeth answered before I could even open my mouth. "We're naming him Oliver." The word landed heavy. Oliver, a good name, a strong name, just not the one we agreed to talk through. I laughed at first, thinking maybe it was the medication, the exhaustion. "Wait," I said quietly. "What?" Elizabeth didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on our son and said, "I've thought about it a lot. Oliver just feels right." I felt heat rise up my neck, but I swallowed it. Hospital rooms aren't the place for arguments. I told myself there'd be time later. Still, something about the way she said it, final and close, bothered me more than I wanted to admit. The nurse smiled politely and began filling out paperwork. I stood there, hands in my pockets, feeling like an extra in my own life. If this story already feels familiar, press like so it can reach others who've lived moments like this too. Later, when we were alone, I tried again. I kept my voice calm. "Elizabeth," we said we'd decide together. She sighed, like I was inconveniencing her. "James, I just gave birth. Can we not do this right now?" That word, this, like my feelings were some minor annoyance. I backed off. For the rest of the day, visitors came and went. Everyone admired baby Oliver. Every time I heard the name, it felt less like a choice and more like a wall being built brick by brick. That night, after Elizabeth fell asleep, I sat in a chair by the window, watching my son breathe. I loved him instantly, unconditionally. But beneath that love was confusion I couldn't shake. It wasn't about the name itself. It was about being erased from a decision that mattered to me. The next morning, a different nurse came in. Older, calm. She checked Elizabeth's vitals, then gently lifted my son from the bassinet. She smiled at him, then at me. "He's a beautiful baby," she said. "Thank you," I replied. As she turned to leave, she paused, leaned closer. Her voice dropped just enough that Elizabeth, still half asleep, couldn't hear. "Make sure you check the paperwork before you sign anything," she whispered, "especially the name section." I frowned. "Why?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "Because this isn't the first time I've seen surprises." Before I could ask what she meant, she gave a small, professional smile and left the room. That whisper replayed in my head over and over. Surprises. I stared at the clipboard on the counter, like it might bite me. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the hospital air. I didn't want to assume anything. Elizabeth wasn't cruel. She wasn't careless. But she had been distant during the pregnancy in ways I couldn't fully explain. Late nights on her phone. Conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Things I told myself were just stress. At this point in the story, I want to know, do you think James is overreacting, or was the nurse warning him for a reason? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I picked up the clipboard. My hands felt heavier than they should have. The name was written clearly at the top. Oliver James Carter. My last name. My first name as a middle name. a compromise I was never asked to make. I told myself to breathe, to slow down, to gather facts before feelings took over. But deep down, I knew that whisper wasn't random. It was intentional. If one word describes what you're feeling right now, confused, uneasy, or suspicious, type that word in the comments. I set the clipboard back down. Elizabeth stirred but didn't wake. I looked at my son again, memorizing his face, and felt a protective instinct rise up stronger than anything before. Something wasn't right, and before I signed anything, I needed to understand exactly what I was walking into. If this story made you feel that quiet tension building, consider sharing it with someone who understands how small moments can carry big consequences. I waited until morning rounds were over, the room finally quiet except for the soft breathing of my son. The nurse who had whispered to me the day before returned, her calm presence almost comforting. I didn't know if I should ask directly or just observe. I opted for patience. She noticed my hesitation. "James, may I?" she asked, gesturing toward the paperwork. I nodded. She flipped through it, her finger stopping at a section I hadn't noticed before, tiny boxes and signatures, medical and administrative codes. One line in particular caught her eye, and her brow tightened slightly. "You see this?" she asked softly. "This line allows a mother to officially record the child's name if there's a discrepancy or change before final registration. Did Elizabeth show you this?" I shook my head. No, she never mentioned it. The nurse gave a small, knowing smile. Exactly. Some parents assume it's just a formality, but it's the step where surprises can appear. Sometimes the name you've agreed on isn't the one that gets legally filed if you don't watch closely. My stomach twisted. She wasn't accusing Elizabeth of anything outright, but the implication hung in the air. I felt the protective instinct I had for my son intensify. I needed to act carefully but decisively. I waited until Elizabeth was up, pretending to review notes on her phone. "Elizabeth," I began, keeping my voice calm. "Can we go over the registration form together before signing?" She glanced up briefly, irritation flickering in her eyes. "James, I'm tired. I just want to hold Oliver and rest." I took a deep breath. I know, and I want that too. But there's a part here that matters, and it's easy to miss. It's about the official record, his name. Elizabeth frowned. "You're overthinking this." We agreed. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but forced myself to stay composed. "We agreed to talk, Elizabeth, but I want to make sure everything is correct legally. That's all. For Oliver." Her expression softened slightly, and she followed me to the paperwork. I read through every line, checking initials, dates, and signatures. Then, the moment of truth. A checkbox had been selected automatically, pre-filled with Oliver's name and birth certificate instructions. If I hadn't noticed, that would have been it. No discussion, no compromise, just final. Pause for a moment. If you're invested in James' struggle to protect his son, hit the like button to show your support for parents facing similar tense decisions. I looked at Elizabeth. "I need your confirmation on this line. Did you choose this alone?" Her eyes shifted down, and her voice softened, quieter than before. I didn't mean to shut you out. I just felt I wanted it to feel right for us, for him." I nodded slowly, trying to mask the storm inside me. It wasn't just about the name anymore. It was about being heard, being part of the decisions that shaped our family. I understand that, but we need to move forward together, always together, for Oliver. She nodded, tears glistening. We signed the form together, side by side. Relief flooded me, but I knew the tension wasn't entirely gone. Something had shifted in the air between us, a reminder of boundaries and respect that had to be maintained. As I cradled Oliver in my arms, I felt an overwhelming mix of emotions: love, protectiveness, fear, and hope. It was a quiet, profound moment, the kind that leaves an indelible mark. The nurse returned one last time, smiling knowingly. "You handled that well, James. Many don't notice the subtle parts until it's too late." I gave a small smile, feeling gratitude I couldn't fully express. Sometimes life whispers warnings, and it's up to us to listen. Later that day, I took a moment to reflect and reach out. Comment below your thoughts. What would you have done in James' place? Did he overreact or was he justified? Elizabeth and I spent the rest of the day together, simply being present, sharing small glances, gentle touches, and quiet laughter. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that honesty, after the tension, felt like a gift. That evening, as the room dimmed and Oliver slept soundly, I realized how small actions, checking a form, noticing a whisper, can change everything. The nurse's quiet intervention didn't just prevent a legal mistake. It reminded me of the importance of vigilance, communication, and partnership. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who understands the delicate balance of new parenthood and decision-making. It can help them too. Elizabeth looked at me later, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for noticing, for caring. I smiled softly. Always. We're a team, Elizabeth. Always a team. The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful gestures, a handshake when discussing baby care, joint decisions on nursery colors, and shared laughter over midnight feedings. Our bond wasn't perfect, but it had strengthened, and in that strength, I realized the real victory wasn't winning an argument. It was ensuring that we navigated parenthood together with respect and love. If you learned something from James' experience, comment the word unity to share the insight with others navigating parenthood challenges. As I sit here now, holding Oliver, I feel an unexpected peace. The whispers, the tension, the small fears, they were all part of learning how to truly listen, how to act thoughtfully, and how to be a parent who stands firm, yet gently. Before you go, make sure to comment your take on James' actions, and subscribe for more stories that explore family choices and the unexpected lessons life brings. In the end, the name on the form wasn't a victory. It was a journey we took to ensure it reflected our partnership, our respect, and our love for the son who had already changed our world forever.